Today we're talking about something I'm really passionate about, which is learning vocabulary. I know it's a subject that most people dread, but I think most of the time when people say vocabulary, they think of using rote memory to memorize a bunch of useless words. But I've always had a good experience just learning it, utilizing it, and learning it in interesting and useful ways. So I figured today I would share some of the resources I used building my vocabulary. First one is OPD, which stands for Oxford Picture Dictionary. Other dictionaries also have their own picture dictionaries. Google has great images that you can learn in tandem with like what this image represents. But I think Oxford so far has done the best job. Like, look at the images. Sometimes they're cartoonish, sometimes they're actual images. The one I have is English to Chinese. So you can see the image and there's also Chinese translation if you want to bridge that gap. So this would be great for anyone that is moving to America, that currently lives in America, or any native language environment. And you have all these specific occasions or scenarios or just situations that you'll be in, like going to the farmer's market, going to the hospital, going to the grocery store, the things that you encounter, the things that you'll need to buy there. And I think a lot of times textbooks don't really do the best job shedding light on all of them. Like textbooks kind of mix everything. It has a little bit of abstract words, common expressions, and also a bunch of real life words. And so I think it's important to have a dedicated workbook just for some of the real life words that you'll encounter, especially if you live here or are about to be. The second workbook on vocabulary is from Cambridge. English Vocabulary in Use. This is great for college students, high school students. If you actually have a subject that you're studying, say you're studying history, you're studying archaeology, politics, there's all these abstract words that go underneath a big umbrella, that go underneath a major that you would often see in different writings, different reading materials, but this workbook just kind of groups them together and it puts all the related words into a context, into a paragraph so that you learn, not just individual words, but you kind of group them together and you can think of them. You can make your own sentences from these new vocab. So yeah, as a beginner, this is super helpful. And I think this one is advanced. If it's too hard, you could go down to intermediate or beginners. And overall, just read more. Read more books, more TED Talks. That's how I picked up more words. Moving on to the next one, we have English collocations in use. This pertains to active usage of the language. When you're writing, a lot of times you can only think of keywords. But when you say things, you use combination of words. So I'll give you an example. So when you say the word evidence, you could say, oh, he is providing the evidence, or the evidence is not conclusive. These words together, these combinations are all called collocations. And a lot of times you don't know if these words can be used together. You could use a proper dictionary to look it up to see if these combinations exist. Or you could also use a more interactive and fun workbook to actively work on them. So this would be great for your speaking, for writing, all that kind of stuff. It's not necessarily to build your vocabulary, but more so to hone in on the ones that you already have and make sure that you don't use them in the wrong way. Moving on to the next one, we have English phrasal verbs in use. Phrasal verbs are important because most of the time we've at least seen all these common words in our elementary school textbooks and high school textbooks, but just knowing the basic meanings of these verbs doesn't mean that you fully master them. And a lot of times just adding a different preposition behind that easy verb gives it a totally different meaning, and sometimes like multiple meanings. In addition to learning more words, you also need to hone in on these basic words. So phrasal verbs is a great way to start, honing in on your words, increasing the quality of your vocab. And you could do that by just using the Longman Dictionary app. Underneath all the basic verbs, it has a list of phrasal verbs and how to use them, how to put them in a sentence. But you could also use a workbook like this. This is intermediate. You go up to advanced. I find the intermediate one just fine. And there's more phrasal verb workbooks out there. It doesn't have to be Cambridge, but this is a classic. And then finally, I don't have that right now with me, but the final resource I want to recommend is called Activator or Thesaurus by most dictionary standards, which is a dictionary of synonyms. Synonyms are important because when you speak or when you write, you don't necessarily think of a specific word. And if you think of a specific word, most of the time it's inappropriate or it's not the most accurate word in this scenario. So I'll give you an example. When you say 我很害羞, obviously we've learned, oh, I'm shy, but there's also self-conscious. There's also, I feel mortified, I feel humiliated, I feel embarrassed, that all have the connotation of shy, but there's different meanings, different contexts underneath it. And so that's also a way to improve the quality of your vocab, but also when you're learning like self-conscious, embarrassed, mortified, humiliated, petrified, blah, 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 you're also increasing your vocabulary and you sound more fluent. You sound like you know what you're talking about. Yeah, that's a great additional tool to build your vocabulary, to increase the quality of your vocab, be it in speaking or writing. So yeah, basically that's everything I use. If you're a beginner in English or you've studied English for a while, you just never quite got the hang of it, you're lacking a little bit of grammar rules, this course is great for those of you who are just starting out or have already learned English for years but somehow still struggle with it, with speaking, with listening, and just not knowing what to do, not knowing what tools to use and how to plan your studies. What can I say? It's great. It helps you set up your study routine. It gives you the systematic strategies into which you can really elevate your speaking and listening skills. And it also tackles the technicalities of perfecting your pronunciation. It gives you specific exercises to work on, as well as grammar rules. So not only do I teach you all these great things, I also have a platform on which you can submit your homework and I can critique your homework and give you real-time feedback. So it's a quite interactive and engaging course, one that you can't miss out on. So that's that. How'd I do? Great? You sound convinced? Yeah.
New year, new me.
New year, new me. Yeah, you better. Okay, I'm gonna go right now. Sit in my corner. All right, bye.